In this episode, I'm going to be giving you an idea of what's involved in creating a user experience on a very tiny device. Welcome to another episode. So the challenge is to take a user interface that we created for what we thought was a small screen and make it work on an even smaller screen. It's actually not as easy as you might at first think. What I want to do here is give you an idea of just what's involved. I'm going to show you some of the iterations that I'm going through, and the final result I'm sure will be quite different from what I show you because there will be additional iterations. But my hope is that this will give you some idea of what's involved in the process of creating software for these throttles. To make it easier to film the video of the screens, I made this what I call a quad pod, which is essentially a tripod that holds the camera straight down and gives me free space underneath so that I can easily work with this and I don't have the tripod in between me and what I'm trying to work with. This has worked out really well. You're going to see the video from this in this video. When we first started working on the throttle, this seemed like a very small screen. To give you an idea, this is from this side to this side, there are 128 pixels or dots, and then this way we have 64. So it's not a very large screen. On the other hand, compared to this screen, it's huge. This screen here is 8 characters across by 2 lines. So one of the challenges is how do you fit this interface into this small screen, and that's what I'm going to be covering. Let's start with the top row. So the top row right here, I'll keep this turned on, is the name of the train that you have selected. And for testing purposes, we have this one called Dead Rail Train. You can see over here, we can only fit the first 7 characters of that name. So that's good enough for now, but it could be that at some point we want to do something where we can scroll this side to side so that you can see the name more completely. The next thing is you can see we have the direction here and the speed. That was fairly easy to translate from one to the other. And by the way, notice that these are connected. So if I change the direction here, it's actually changing on both of them. And likewise, if I change the speed over here, it changes on both of them. That's a pretty cool thing about LCC. You know, whether or not you really want it in reality, not really sure, but that's the way we have it set up at the moment. So moving on, things start to get even more difficult. So here you can see that we have the battery strength, whether the voltage, and then we have the signal strength for Wi-Fi. And over here I have the same elements, but they're a lot smaller. Now the way I had to do it over here is quite different from how we had to do over here. So this display, we have, as I mentioned, characters that we're showing. So this is 8 characters across by 2 rows of characters. There are up to 8 different characters that we can customize with our own images. And so that's what I'm doing here for this display. This is actually 1 character with pixels on the top and the bottom. Now, because there's a limit, by the way, I set the timeout to 60 seconds, which I thought would be enough, but maybe it's not quite enough. Anyway, so I can't show as many bars here, and the battery strength is showing a lot less information, but at least it works. Now let's take a look at function keys. So if I turn on some function keys here, you can see that it's very clear that we have function 1 and function 5 turned on. And then if I press the shift key, we're now in the range of 10 plus. So here's 12. So we actually have 10 on, 12, etc. And then if I shift again, you can see we have 24 on. So it's very easy to figure out what function keys you have turned on with this display. Fitting that into the much smaller display was a real challenge. So what we have here, this is what I have after several different attempts. And I'm going to show you some information about additional attempts. So what we have here is, the first thing is this says whether it's function 0 through 9. And if I press shift, you can see it changes to 1. So now it's 10 through 19, and then 20 through 28, I think, is the last function key. And then we have these dots here. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little bit better. So each of these dots represents a function. This is the type of compromise that you have to accept when you're dealing with something so limited. It's not as easy to read as the other one by a long shot, but it does convey the information. So you do have to count a little bit. So this one is 0. So this means I have function 1 on, and I have function 5 on, which, by the way, if I zoom out, matches what you see on the other one. So these two displays are actually showing the same thing. And likewise, if I shift to the next page, you can see we have function 10 and function 12 on. As I say, not ideal, but it's kind of the best thing we could think of for this. I was talking to Stuart the other day on the telephone about the display that I showed you just now for how we represent different function keys. And he had some other ideas about how to do it. So he pulled up a spreadsheet and started to do what you see here, which is to make the columns and rows so that you have roughly squares here. And then you can set these to be a black fill with a white border. And that way you can see what the characters will look like. The first row or the first section that I have here, basically this part here, represents just 4 characters on the screen. And these are the 4 characters that I was using to represent the function keys. What you see here is close to what I have right now and just showed you, but not exactly the same. These gaps right here are actual gaps that are in the display. So there are gaps in between the characters. And that means that you can't do something like this where you have a 0, for example, that goes across this gap. So let me explain what I have here. This is, as I said, close to what I have now. This is another idea, which is to have the 0 aligned with the top row to indicate that this first one here is 0. And then there's a little 9 here to represent that this one here is function 9. When we switch to the higher functions, we can show either 10 or 20, but in this case you can see the 0 from the 20 is being chopped off because we don't have room for pixels over there. Now, I just realized there's another thing we could try, which I can show you. So I'm going to copy or paste these over here. And then, yeah, that doesn't work. It's really hard to see this. Well, if you squint, it might kind of look like a 2-0. So that would be an option. However, where we ended up, which is the one that I am going to try to implement next, is this version here. So it's a variation on what Stuart was suggesting, but we dropped the 9 so that we have more room here. And, well, actually it doesn't make any room change there. But then what I did is represent 0 like this instead of like this. And we'll see what that looks like on the actual screen, but I think it'll work. I like to make small changes. So the first change is to move the 0 from the bottom of the character to the top. These are how the characters are represented. You can see there are a set of zeros here, and then here we have a 1. The way this works is that the characters are 5 pixels wide by 8 pixels tall. So here the first line is going to be all off, and then the third line, you can see that we have the outline of the, if you look carefully, we have the outline of the 0 right here. Because the ones represent when the characters are on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top 2 lines and move them to the bottom for all of these, and that will shift the characters up in the frame. I'll go ahead and finish this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and update the throttle, which I can do by flashing the throttle, and you can see it does a rebuild of the code, and then it's going to send it to the throttle. And here you can see it's now actually sending the update to the throttle, and it's doing that over the air, so it's doing it over Wi-Fi. Here you can see what it looks like now that I moved the 0 to the top. For the next step, I'm going to try to do these here, where I have the 10 and the 20. So let's head over to the program, and the 0 is fine. What I'll need to do is change this one, which is a 1, to be 1, 0. So I'm going to copy the 0 to here, and then I'm going to update it to make the first column be a 1. So all of these will become 1, and that'll give me the 1, 0. And then down here, what I'm going to want to do is a little bit more extreme. So I'm going to change it so that I have a block of 2 columns at the very right that are all on to represent the 0. And then I'm going to add the 2 on the left side. So I'll start by having the horizontal part of the 2, then we have the right side, we have the middle, the left side, and the bottom. And that should be it. I'll go ahead and flash that, and we'll have a look. Okay, now that I've implemented the different pages, let's have a look. So if I press the Shift key, you can see there's the 10, and there's the 20. I'm not sure if I like this look, but I'll play around with somewhat a little while, and I may go back to what I had before with just the 0, the 1, and the 2. Here I'm updating the functions to move them to the right. And here's the result. You can see that there is more of a gap now between the number for which page we're on and the function keys. And you can see here's 0, here's 4, 5, and 9. So it's now working correctly. And I like having them on the right. I think that looks a little bit better. I'm still not happy with how this looks, so I think I may go back to 0, 1, and 2 that I had before. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, please leave a comment or click the thumbs up. Also, please subscribe. That way you'll be notified when I have new videos. See you next time.